Everyone, please join me in welcoming tonight's speaker, Colonel Doug Hurley.
Thank you. May 30th, 2020. I was sitting on the top of a rocket, getting ready to go into space, and I have to tell you, there are a lot of things that go through your mind when you're getting ready to leave the planet, especially in 2020. I was thinking about my family. You know, your family, when you get ready to go fly in space, your family can just watch. They're nervous, they're excited, they're worried, they're proud, but yet they're helpless. So you think about them. I thought about my crewmate, Bob Benkin, one of my closest friends in the world, my pilot for this mission. We'd been friends for 20 years, and I considered myself probably the luckiest guy to leave the planet that day because he was by far the best astronaut NASA has produced in the last 30 years. I thought a lot about the thousands of people that had built, designed, and put this spaceship on the launch pad. You know, you think about every one of them and all the work that went into it for those countless years to get us to that point. I also thought about it's the first flight of a human space vehicle in 30 years. So I felt a little bit of pressure. Not since 1981 with STS-1 had there been a new flight of a space vehicle. I also thought about my last flight on STS-135, which was the last space shuttle flight, and the 9 years it took to get us to this point. And now I was the commander. Now I had to make some timely, critical decisions, and like every other astronaut, just hoped that I wasn't going to screw this up. Everybody was counting on us to accomplish this mission and get America back into space. I can't tell you how many challenges we dealt with, and I call them challenges. Other people call them failure. Other people call them disappointments. They call them setbacks. I call them challenges. And what I mean by that is we experienced several in the lead up to that flight over the 5 or 6 years we were involved with the design and development of the Crew Dragon. But then, as you're sitting there waiting to launch, you do have some just time where your mind wanders. And I thought about, how did I get here? You know, I thought about that 5-year-old kid back in Appalachian, New York. Anybody know where Appalachian, New York is? There you go. Thank you. It's a really small town in upstate New York, and I remember loving airplanes and being a science fiction nut. And then years later, I decided this is where I was going to go to college. And I went to my parents and I said, I want to go to Tulane. And they're like, Tulane? What is that? And and I said, it's a university in New Orleans, and I think that's where I should go. And they said, that's great. Figure out a way to pay for it. And I'm sure there are many parents out there that had the same question of their child. So literally a month later, there was a college information night at my high school. And this Navy officer stood up and talked about an NROTC scholarship. They pay for tuition and books and fees for you to go to a 4-year school. And then I started thinking, airplanes, pay to go to college, and I would have to join the military. This might be a good plan. And that's what I did. Off I went to Tulane in the fall of 1984 and had 4 just incredible life-changing years here. Between Navy ROTC, the School of Engineering, I grew up, I matured, I learned so much about the wonderful culture of this city, and it prepared me for everything that was to follow. That included a commissioning in the Marine Corps as a second lieutenant, a career as a fighter pilot, then a test pilot, and then that day in July of 2000 when I got a phone call from NASA asking if I wanted to come down there and join the effort to fly into space. Of course, those are the kind of phone calls that you never believe you're going to have, but it happened, and of course you say yes. I had to wait a long time to fly, as most of my classmates did. There was a large number of astronauts. We had a terrible accident in 2003. We lost the shuttle Columbia. But that time came on STS-127 in 2009, my first flight, and then, as I'd said, my second and last shuttle flight, and the last shuttle flight of NASA's history in 2011. I honestly looked around after we landed. I remember sitting on the runway at Kennedy just after we had landed on STS-135, and you could see the people and the vehicles starting to come up to the orbiter. And I remember thinking, now what? Because the space shuttle program was over. That was the last flight. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I didn't have a lot of time to think about it because my wife, also an astronaut, was getting ready to go fly for 6 months on the International Space Station. So my job became maintain the family, maintain the household, support my wife while she was in space. Thank you. It was an incredible experience, especially being the single parent at that point to a 3-year-old. I was way out of my league, but we managed. After my wife got back safely at the end of 2013, then it was time to start thinking about what was next, not only for our careers, but maybe for our family. And then my boss came to me and said, "Hey, are you interested in flying in space again?" And I said, maybe, if it's the right thing to do, because your whole perspective changes when you have a family, and the risks that you take have to be worth it. Anyway, that opportunity came along, and they said, "Hey, we want you to fly on the first SpaceX test flight." As a test pilot, a fighter pilot, this was a once-in-a-generational opportunity to be able to fly a space vehicle for the first time. So this is where, as I said before, the challenges started. This new company, SpaceX, had never flown people in space before. They were trying to revolutionize the industry. They were trying to change the way we did space business. And there were times where it was pretty bleak. We had started working with them to develop the spacecraft, and in 2016, while we were working out there, there was a routine fueling of the rocket where they would fire the engines for a short time just to make sure it was ready to go for a launch. There was a Facebook payload on board that rocket, and it blew apart into a million little pieces and took the launch pad with it. And so you're thinking, that is the rocket that I'm supposed to fly in just a couple years. And the team came together. You can have two reactions to this. You can sit there and go, we're never going to get there, or you can get to work and solve the problem, figure out what happened, and move on. And that's what we did. So we got into a routine. I was spending more and more time out in Los Angeles, which is the headquarters of SpaceX, than I was with my family back in Houston. And we thought we were making very good progress, to the point where now we're in 2019. And we're getting ready to do the first uncrewed test flight. Everything was looking good. The mission was a success. And I'm thinking, we've got this now. We're getting close. The team was ready to go. 6 weeks later, we were doing a test on the abort engines, which are the engines that would take us safely away from the rocket if the rocket had a problem during the ascent. The capsule that had just flown a successful test mission, uncrewed, blew up almost like that rocket did in 2016. We were so close. That was a tough one. I remember going home that night, and Karen and I had a pretty frank and honest conversation, because even though she's an astronaut, she really appreciated the gravity of that situation, how serious it was that we were literally a year away from flying and we had blown up a capsule. So I really had to dig deep on that one. The team had to dig deep. We solved that problem and moved on. Now we're into 2020. We've got one more major flight test to go. It goes off without a hitch. This is January. Everybody knows what happened in March of 2020. Just when you think we're going to go fly in space, I start hearing these things. In fact, I was out at SpaceX training. You're hearing about this virus that's going around in the Far East. I've heard the word COVID for the first time, coronavirus for the first time. Sure enough, by the time we had gotten back to Houston at the end of that week, the world had shut down. You all remember how that changed everybody's existence. And certainly when we're this close to flying in space, it was like, what else can possibly go wrong? But once again, the team figured out a way to keep us safe. We figured out a way to finish our training. And now we're back on May 30th, 2020. Finally. Hopefully they're going to play a video now.
It's here in the launch position.
We copy.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA. Go SpaceX. Godspeed, Bob and Doug.
America has launched. So rises a new era of American spaceflight, and with it the ambitions of a new generation continuing the dream.
So that was our graduation day, and it's absolutely my honor to be here for yours. You've earned it. It's taken you a little longer to get here. We were all on this journey in 2020, but here we are, and better for it. My heartfelt congratulations to you, the class of 2020. You are unique in history. Wear it as a badge of honor. It's just an incredible thing to be a part of. And the other thing I want you to think about and remember is all during your life, you're going to have setbacks. You're going to have disappointments. You're going to have failures as you move forward through your personal life, through your professional life, you name it. The real difference you're going to make will be a function of those challenges you go through and what you do to overcome them. It is an absolute honor for me to be here to share this moment with you. I can't tell you how great it is to be back here. When Mike called and asked me to do this, it was like, yes, just tell me when I need to be there. Tulane was and is such a huge part of who I am and what I became. And I know it will be the same for you. One last thing, and then I'll get off the stage. Don't ever give up. It's not going to be easy, but just like today, it'll be worth it. Thank you.